Hey guys, it's Katie and Sasha's back. She's my little cheer pup for today because I've had a really busy week and I'm having an even busier weekend. But that's not what we're here today. Today to film a book haul. For those of you who don't have been here for a long time, in my almost 2 years on BookTube, I think I've only done like 3 book hauls total. And most of the reason for that being I share a lot of my books with friends, but I don't, or I just get them as gifts or something and I don't necessarily count them for some reason. I don't fully understand it myself. But these books that I'm going to talk about today are either ones that I actually got for myself with a bunch of saved up gift card money, or I got for my Christmases, because I have 2, both the one on December 25th, but I also have one on January 7th, and so there's a lot of them, so let's just kind of jump right in. Most of these books I acquired because they were under, like $4 or under, and I was specifically looking for that because I wanted to get like a bunch of stuff so I could, filter down on my list a little bit more. And just to see whether I was going to enjoy them or not. But anyway, I'm just going to jump right on in. I don't know too much about these books, but 95% of them are fantasy. So the first book I got was City of Masks by Ashley Capes. This is an adult fantasy novel, and I'm not entirely sure I remember what this is about because it sounds very similar to this other book series that I'm kind of interested in. But if I remember correctly, this one is like you wear a mask and it signifies status or something. I don't even know. Just know that there is a 95% chance that I don't know what half of these books are about. So just be prepared for that. And another book I got is Captain Blood by Raphael Sabatini. This is the original pirate book, or one of the original pirate books. It was written a really long time ago, and I think it's might be based on, who is it, Blackbeard or Captain Cook? I can't remember, but it's just, one of the OG pirate books, and I'm really excited to launch right into that one. Then I got Girl at War by Saranovich, and basically what this book is about is it's following, I think it might be a personal account of someone from the Bosnian-Serbian war that broke out, back in the 80s, I think it was. And it's just kind of detailing, I guess, some of the things and some of the experiences she had during that wartime. And that's something that I'm particularly interested in because I have a very large Serbian background. And it's definitely something I know a fair amount about, but I don't know as much as I would like. So I feel like it would be a good book to start with a little bit of just getting a personal account that would just really personalize it and make it just that much more real for me. I don't know. Then the next one I got is In the Blood, and it's the first book in this, I think it's ancestral, murder mystery series or something like that, and it's by Steve Robinson. And my understanding is it's there are these families and they're tied together by this murder that happened a long time ago, and they find out more things about themselves in the process or whatever. It sounded kind of interesting. I'm a huge fan of Dan Brown, and there are a couple of other series that I found that sound kind of similar in some ways to it, and this sounds like one of them, so I'm interested in getting to that. And the next one is called The Secret of the Stone by Ernest Dempsey. This seems to be, I think, all about relics and things. So it's these protectors of all of these different ancient relics or something. And I don't know. It sounded interesting too. So I figured I'd check that out. Then I got The 12 Kings in Sharakai by Bradley P. Bulio. But I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about this series from people who I know who've read it, so I figured, hey, why not? And I was able to get it for a really cheap price, so I got that one. And the next one is called The Unknown Man by J.G. Gatewood. And this book is, I think, it's someone, this man wakes up in the back of a wagon and he doesn't remember who he is, where he's from, what his purpose is, and is just kind of like an epic fantasy trilogy, I think, of kind of just him figuring out his life, basically. I don't know. There's probably a lot more to it than that, but that's my understanding of it. The next one is called Free the Darkness, and it's by Kelcade. I really don't know anything about this book. It seems to be, the cover makes it look like it's dark fantasy, but I think it might just be another epic fantasy trilogy. I'm really, really into epic fantasy. If you don't know that already, hi, welcome to my channel. But yeah, I don't know much about it. It just looks intriguing. I don't know. We'll see. Then next is The Gateway by L.J. Andrews. Actually, this is the one that is like the relics protecting thing. I don't know what the other one that I was talking about earlier is about, obviously, but this relics one sounded really, really interesting, and it seems to take place, at least for the most part, in ancient UK, ancient England, Ireland, Scotland, I don't know, somewhere around there. Then the next one is The White Company by Arthur Conan Doyle. And my understanding is that this is a particular, he wrote about a particular event, so it's a historical fiction fantasy novel about some sea battle or something, and it, you know, medieval things and sea things, and Arthur Conan Doyle, like, perfect combo for me, so I figured, hey, why not? Then next is The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. This book series sounds so interesting to me. It's like secret society and like Invisible Library, like spy stuff, and that sounds right up my alley. Like libraries, spy things, conspiracies, and just, I don't know, fantasy elements. I don't know, it just sounds really cool, and I'm really excited to pick that one up. Then next is Green Rider by Kristen Britton, and this book also sounds really interesting. It actually kind of reminds me of a story that I was writing myself a while back. It seems to be just that this young girl is kind of either running away or just riding through the woods when she stumbles across this man who's been shot with all these arrows, and he gives her this message and tells her, you know, it's a life or death situation if you don't deliver this thing. And it's basically just her taking on this message and this persona of being the Green Rider, and then ultimately all of the chaos and things that follow. So I mean, that just sounds really interesting. Then next is The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And this just seems to be some kind of interesting fantasy novel that follows different clans and I think their interactions with each other. I mean, that's really about maybe all I know, is that it's kind of seems to deal with clans of some kind and things like that. And I know some people who are reading it right now that are absolutely loving it, so that bodes well for my enjoyment, hopefully, as well. Then the next is The Winds of Kalakovo by Bradley P. Boulleau. This one also sounds really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard really anyone talk about this trilogy, but it sounds perfect. I mean, it also seems to deal with like water things and archipelagos and just lots of crazy fun shenanigans that I am here for. Next is The Curse of Kellian, or Kellian, I'm not sure which, by Lois McMaster Bujold, or is it Bujold? I'm not sure. And it just, I think if I remember correctly, it's like kind of, it's an older fantasy trilogy, I believe, and it's kind of like this one guy was an alchemist or like the physician at the palace, and now he has an apprentice, and there's all of this other political intrigue stuff going on. So I mean, it's kind of appealing to me. I mean, despite having read a lot of assassin / political intrigue books, I live for them. So hi, welcome to my life. And next is Scaramouche by Raphael Sabatini. Literally, the reason I'm picking this book up is because it's one of my best friend's favorite books, or one of her favorite books, and it just sounds really fun. It's kind of about this character named Scaramouche, who is like this sly, conniving little person back in, I think it's like 16th century France or something like that, and it's just kind of like all about his connivings and his, shenanigans that are going on. But I think there's more to it than that. I'm not sure. I'm garbage at describing books, sorry, but it just sounds fun. Plus, it's one of my best friend's books, so I really want to read it. Then we have The Age of Assassins by R.J. Barker. And my understanding of this book is it's not about assassins who are taking lives, it's about an assassin who is trying to save a life. And that idea of assassins makes it sound even more interesting to me than, normal assassins books. So I figured I'd give this one a shot. Then next is what I'm incredibly excited about, and that is The Traitors Blamed by Sebastian de Castell. I've heard several people talk about Sebastian de Castell over the last several months, and this book is the beginning of the Greatcoat series by him, and it's kind of like, I don't want to call it a retelling, but it almost seems like a Three Musketeers retelling with all of these really fun, interesting fantasy elements thrown in. And hi, I'm garbage for the Three Musketeers and just that whole situation. And I've heard it has some really, really great action sequences in it, which I'm also here for because, hi, I was a medievalist. I studied a little bit of some swordplay stuff. Plus, I have a friend, that same friend, by the way, who who loves Scaramouche. She also studied fencing for a time, and so, I'll be really interested to dive on into that series because Three Musketeers, swordplay, kind of medievally based. Then I've also heard it has quite a bit of legal aspects in it, and I'm just so ready. Just bring me all of those things because it just sounds like so much fun. Then next is Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. And basically what this book is about, it follows a certain event I think it might be during World War II in Russia, and just all of the hardships and turmoil the people went through during that time, but I could be wrong on the time period. But I've heard it, as most Russian things, that this is a historical recounting of a specific event, and I'm getting more and more interested in Russian history and Russian things as I've kind of grown older, and my mom loved it, so I'm interested to see how I feel about this book. And the next is The Luck in the Shadows by Lynn Flewelling, and I don't know much about this except for that it's kind of an older fantasy series, and it's got two main characters who are in a gay romantic relationship, and I've heard really good things about it from a bunch of different people that I know that have read it, so I'm really interested to see how it goes. And next is Fire from Heaven by Mary Renault, and basically this trilogy is all about Alexander the Great's life. It's a historical fiction retelling of Alexander the Great's life, and I've heard really great things about this author and this trilogy, and because that's a period of time that I love, and Alexander the Great is a very interesting historical figure, I'm definitely looking forward to jumping into that. And next is Dragonsbane by Barbara Hambly, and this, I think, is an older fantasy series. I heard Samantha from Sam's Nonsense talk about it, and it just sounds really interesting. Plus, I love dragons and the use of dragons, and I've heard that this is a really interesting take on them as well. Plus, I just feel like I need to read some older fantasy, so I'll be excited to start that at some point. Next is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crowe by Jessica Townsend. I've heard phenomenal things about this book series. It's a middle grade book series that sounds very Harry Potter-esque. And I mean, I don't want to go in automatically comparing it to Harry Potter because one, that's not fair to the author, and two, it's hard to just compare things to Harry Potter. So I'm just going to try and go in with a very neutral feeling on everything and see how I feel about it. As I said, I've heard really phenomenal things about it. I'm really excited to jump into that one. Next is Everlist by Sarah Holland. This seems to be some kind of Anastasia retelling almost, and I've heard interesting things about it. I've heard it's kind of one of those books that you either love or you hate, and we'll see how I feel about it. I know the second book is also out, so I'll be interested to see how that goes. And next is Words of the Fairy by Terry Brooks. This is the beginning of, or a prequel to, a larger series. I don't remember the name of it right now, but I love fairy stories, and it seems like it's portraying like more of a Celtic fairy kind of a thing, and I'm really interested to see what Terry does with his world, because as I said, I love fairy things. The next is the Book of Nights, which is an Arthurian tale retelling thing. I guess the book is like the Holy Grail, and these knights guard the book, or something like that. I've heard mixed things about it, but I love pretty much all things King Arthur and just Arthurian retellings. So I'm really interested to see what I think of it. I think I forgot to mention, but the author is J.G. McKinney. But as I said, I'm really garbage for Arthurian retellings, so I'll be very interested to see what I think. The next is a book I actually have already read at this point, and it's called Hook by K.R. Thompson. I've literally forgotten the author every other time I've talked about this book. But basically what it is it's kind of an origin story and retelling of the story of Captain Hook from Peter Pan. There's this whole like other series called The Untold Tales of Neverland, and this is one of the books in there. I don't know if it's the first or the second one. Depending on which site you look at depends on whether they list it first or second. But I'm seeing this as probably the second book because of, you know, Peter's role in the story, and Peter has his own origin story, and it was an interesting book and I'd recommend it, but know that there are certain things that are drastically different than from the original work, because I was not quite fully expecting it going in. I loved learning about Captain Hook's background though. Then the next book I got is the Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. I just know that they're letters that were compiled of things that Tolkien sent throughout his life to different people about different things, and it's just been put into a book form. And I'll be interested to see some of the letters, because I've definitely read a few here or there, but I want to see them all encompassed in a book, because it just could be really interesting to see, and plus just any chance I can get to pick Tolkien's mind and learn more about him, I will take it. The next one is The Duel of Fire by Jordan Rivet. I don't know too much about this book. I think it came out last year and I don't remember too much about it, but it sounded really interesting and I'm excited to get to it. The next is a book that I got because of a booktuber, and that is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. If you can't guess who I got this book because of at this point, it's Vendi from Caught Between Pages. This is one of her all-time favorite series, and I'm really excited to pick it up because when she told me that the world building is based on Croatia, I'm just like, yes please, I would really like to read this book. But also, besides that, the premise sounds really interesting. It's these I think it's like elemental magic or something. So there are different types of elemental magic throughout the time: Wind Witch, Truth Witch, Blood Witch, and Sight Witch, I think. And Truth Witches are the most uncommon and most rare of all of the witches. And our main protagonist just so happens to have that power. But I've also heard it just has epic female friendships in it, and that it's just, I don't know, it's just going to be a really interesting book, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking that up later this year. The next is The Bird and the Blade by Megan Brennan, I believe is her name. And this is a Mongolian-inspired YA fantasy novel, and I'm really interested to pick that up because I've just always been fascinated with Mongolian history, especially since the influence that it had on medieval history and just history of all kinds of people from Europe. My only concern is that it's not written by a person of Mongolian or Asian descent, so I'll be interested to see how it's done. I don't know much about it other than that, so I'll be interested to see what I think when I go into that. Now, the next couple of books that I'm going to talk about are books that I got for Christmases. For normal Christmas, so those who celebrate on December 25th, I got the first 3 Harry Potter books in the illustrated editions that were done by Jim Kay, and I'm not pulling them off of my bookshelf because they are incredibly heavy, and I don't have any muscles whatsoever, so that just means that they're gonna just stay on the shelf, and I'll just put up a pretty picture of them here for your viewing pleasure. But I'm really excited to jump into them. I originally wasn't going to get the illustrated editions because the thing about reading books is we all have our own thoughts and, visions of what characters and people look like in our heads as we're reading, because that's just the beauty of the world. But then I sat back and I thought about how that has kind of been destroyed by the movie franchise, because now when I read the books, I just can't help but see the actors in my head as I'm reading. But then also, I watched a television special on like the history of Hogwarts or something like that, and it was kind of just going through different historical aspects or things that inspire J.K. Rowling to about the creatures and the language and the things that she did in regards to the Harry Potter world. And there was a portion of it that included Jim Kay talking about his process with creating the illustrated editions, like how much time went into it and how much he wanted them to be as accurate as possible, and just how he originally thought it was going to take him a couple of months to do it, and it ended up taking him several years. It was just hearing his journey made me want to pick these up, even though it's backed by J.K. Rowling. Just his story, he's the one that did all of the work for these editions, and because of that I wanted to support him in however way I can. So I just definitely really enjoyed hearing his story, and that definitely made me want to pick that up. And then the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about are ones that I got myself for Orthodox Christmas. Serbian people celebrate Christmas on January 7th instead of December 25th because we're on a different calendar system. But I got myself 2 books. The first one I got was The Land of Silver Apples by Nancy Farmer, which is the second book in the Sea of Trolls trilogy. If you guys have been here for a while, you know that I talked about the first book a lot, and I recommend it a lot because it's so well done. This is the second book in the trilogy, and we're going to be back with Jack and all of his friends and a lot of the characters we met in the first one, and I'm very, very excited to get back into that world. And then the final book that I have to talk to you guys about from this haul is The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden, which is the third and final installment in her Winter Night trilogy. That is a book that I am currently finishing up right now, and it will be finished with by the time this goes up, but it is the final book in the Winter Night trilogy, and it picks up directly where The Girl in the Tower left off, and it's just all of these events and chaotic things happen afterwards, and it's just really tying everything that we learned in both the first and the second books together. And I have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts, and it's just so incredibly well done, and I would highly recommend that you pick it up if you haven't already. So those are all of the books that I've gotten over the last month or so, whether they were for myself or books that I received from people or for specific holidays and things. And I'm really excited to pick them up, and I'm glad that I picked up some of the ones that I've already read. And yeah, that's about all I've got. So as always, you guys know the drill at this point, but I have both of my social media links down below if you guys are interested. I have a Twitter and a Goodreads, and I would love to talk to you guys further about any of these if you have read them or if you're planning on reading them. And I'll come back with another video for you guys soon, and catch you later. Alright, bye!